Hello and welcome to this short video on academic referencing. I hope you find this helpful and a useful review. So some questions to think about. What is referencing? Why do we reference? What are some reasons that students don't reference correctly? How can I reference correctly? And before we move on, you might want to pause the video and think about those questions yourself. And during the rest of this video, I will attempt to answer those questions. So the first question, what is referencing? And this is a quote I found, and Griggs and Watkins explain that referencing is the process of informing readers of your work, where you obtained your information, and enabling them to check the sources you used themselves. Sounds a bit unwieldy, but I think you follow what they're trying to say here. Enabling the readers to check the sources that you used. It also acknowledges your debt to the work done by the authors you have read. Yeah. So at the university, we want to know who did you engage with during this assignment? Which sources helped you to complete this assignment? And you list the references in order that the reader can check these sources, and so that you acknowledge your debt to these sources, so that you acknowledge that this information is taken from those other sources. So basically making it clear where you obtained the information and enabling the reader to check the original sources and showing your debt to these authors. Yeah. So, why do we reference? Now, I've asked myself this question a lot on my own educational journey. Why do I need to do this? I don't have time for this. Does it really matter? Is anybody going to notice if I don't do it properly? And here are some reasons why we should reference. And I've taken this from the Harvard Referencing at Liverpool Hope detailed guide. And according to this guide, you reference to avoid accusations of plagiarism, to avoid accusations that you are passing off other people's work as your own, that you are lifting information from other sources and not acknowledging those sources, or that you are word for word borrowing. So you must always acknowledge when you have used other people's work in your academic writing in order to avoid any accusations of plagiarism or academic misconduct. Referencing helps the reader see where the ideas behind your work have come from. So we know what referencing is now, and referencing is basically a means of showing where you got your ideas from. Good references should give the reader enough information to check those sources themselves, which is why there are certain conventions around how to reference correctly. References give your writing authority and tell your tutors you have researched your work properly by referring to experts in your subject. So here it's also showing that it's not just about referencing, but about referencing experts. So this is what you often hear, is that you should be using credible sources or scholarly sources or academic sources, because if you're writing about a specific topic, then we want the experts on this topic to be consulted, not just some blog that maybe we have found through Google search. And you should not make any unsubstantiated claims. What does unsubstantiated mean? Unsupported. You're not backing up your claims. So I might say, Ronaldo is the greatest footballer in the world. And then your natural question would be, what evidence do you have to support this claim? I'm claiming that he's the best in the world. What evidence do I have to support it? If I don't have any evidence to support it, then it's an unsubstantiated claim. It's an unsupported claim, and it makes a weak argument. So substantiating your claims, supporting your claims, referencing other people's work helps to provide that evidence. So what are some reasons why students don't reference correctly? Well, they may not know how to reference. They may not have been taught how to do so at school, and that's okay. I wasn't taught how to reference at school. I only started learning about referencing when I started university. And that's a normal experience, I think, for many students. You may not see it as a priority. So, you've got to answer this question or complete this assignment, and that's taking up all of your time thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I going to answer this question? How am I going to show what I know? Referencing might not be something you think as particularly important. It's also time consuming. If you want to do it correctly, you have to check that you're using the correct referencing conventions and find the original sources and reference them correctly, and that can take a while. If you are a procrastinator and you submit your assignments at the last minute and don't start working on them until a couple of days before the assignment is due, then you may not leave enough time to reference correctly. And it's okay if that's your way of approaching your work. Some procrastinators produce the best work working like that, but it again doesn't leave you enough time to reference correctly. So if you are a procrastinator, at least give yourself one day to do the referencing. Students may have misunderstood what a tutor has told them. So one tutor might say something and the student understands something else. And this is normal because there's a lot of information coming at you, and we all have filters through which we accept knowledge and information from other people. So it's something to consider that maybe your tutor told you correctly, but you didn't understand it correctly. One way to avoid this is just to go to the Harvard Referencing Guide, because it's written down on paper what the correct referencing conventions are. And the other reason that students might not reference is because they don't do any research about the topic. And of course, an unresearched assignment is unlikely to score a high grade. So how can I reference correctly? So on a previous slide, I included the following quote. And this was the quote I used to give a definition of referencing. How did I make it clear that this quote was taken from another source? So how did I make it clear to you, the audience, that the quote I am using is not my own words, but is somebody else's words? And how do I indicate whose words they are and where these words came from? So, if you consult the Harvard Referencing Guide, it will explain that Quotes should be in single quotation marks. They should include the surnames of the authors, the year of publication, and the page number if this is available. Yeah, this is for direct quotes, for quotations. Yeah, if it is an indirect quote or you are paraphrasing, the ideas are from somewhere else, but you've put those ideas into your own words, then you don't need the page number. In some cases, the page number is not available. You might be taking information from a website, in which case you just write no pagination. No pagination. And you can consult the Harvard Referencing Guide where it explains this again. Very important, as I've said, but just to reiterate, this is how you directly quote a source in a text. But it's not enough to just include the in-text citation. At the end of your assignment, or on your final slide, if it's a presentation, you should list the references, giving the full information, what we call the full bibliographical information. Yeah. So you need the in-text citation, but also at the end you need the full citation. So this is what we call the reference list. And according to the Liverpool Harvard Referencing Guide, references to books, and I say books because for journal articles, for websites, for book chapters, different conventions apply. So I don't have time to go through all the conventions for each source. This is just an example. Okay, so imagine we are citing a book. Then we would need the author's names, the surnames and the initials, the year of the publication, the book title in italics followed by a full stop, the edition if there is one. If it's not the first, you should put second, third, fourth, etc. The place of publication followed by a colon. This can be a pain finding the place. Sometimes you have to go to the contents page, and just before the contents page it lists the places. And then the publisher followed by a full stop. So the source that I drew on for my definition of referencing was Grix and Watkins. And I've quoted that information in the text, and at the end of the text I then give the full information, which would be the author, and I don't need the full first name, I just need the surname and the initials, the year of the publication, and that should be in brackets, the book title in italics. And this is not the case for journal articles, so you need to check for journal articles. The place of publication followed by a colon, and then the publisher followed by a full stop. Okay, that's all we have time for. I hope you found this helpful, and be patient. This takes time and you will make mistakes. And don't expect to get it right first time. And in all cases, if you're unsure, ask the tutor who is marking your assignment rather than any other tutors. And ask the tutor who's marking the assignment rather than asking other students. I'm sure your tutor will be happy to explain to you anything that is unclear. And remember, you can always ask, book an appointment with an academic writing mentor if you need to. All right, thanks for your time. Have a lovely day, evening, morning, weekend, month, and maybe I'll see you again soon.